Most people believe strength is loud. They believe power announces itself, explains itself, defends itself. The samurai believed the opposite. In ancient Japan, silence was not weakness. It was proof. Proof that the mind was settled, the ego restrained, and the will already decided. Today, noise surrounds everything, but the ancient discipline of silence remains one of the most demanding forms of self-mastery ever practiced. In the writings and life of Miyamoto Musashi, one truth appears repeatedly. The less a warrior speaks, the more carefully he observes. Musashi did not argue to prove himself. He did not explain his intentions. He arrived, acted, and left. Silence was not avoidance, it was control. Zen teachings echoed this principle. When the mind is quiet, reality reveals itself without distortion. Chapter 1. The Noise Within. Kenji was not weak, but he was constantly restless. His days were filled with conversations, explanations, and internal arguments that never seemed to end. At work, he spoke often to be seen as competent. In conflict, he explained himself endlessly, hoping to be understood. At night, his mind replayed every sentence he had spoken, judging each one. He did not realize it, but his exhaustion came not from effort, but from noise. The samurai understood this long ago. Bushido taught that energy wasted on unnecessary words is energy stolen from decisive action. A warrior who must speak to feel strong has already surrendered inner authority. Chapter 2. The Samurai View of Silence. In Zen monasteries and warrior schools, silence was not a rule. It was a training ground. To remain silent was to face the mind without distraction. Thoughts surfaced. Ego protested. Impatience revealed itself. Silence exposed what noise was hiding. This is why it was feared by the undisciplined. Musashi wrote in Dokodo, "Do not let yourself be guided by the feeling of lust or love." This was not limited to desire for people or comfort, but also the desire to be heard, praised, or validated. Silence starves this desire. It forces the warrior to stand alone with his intent. Chapter 3. The Moment of Realization. Kenji first noticed the pattern during an argument he did not need to win. Halfway through explaining himself, he paused. He felt the familiar urge to continue, to justify, to clarify, to dominate the conversation. Instead, he stopped speaking. The silence felt uncomfortable, almost threatening. But something else happened. The room shifted. The other person spoke more. Kenji listened. For the first time, he was not defending an identity. He was observing reality. That moment mirrored a Zen principle. When the self is quiet, truth speaks louder. Chapter 4. Silence as Psychological Armor. The samurai trained to remain silent under insult, chaos, and fear. Not because they were indifferent, but because emotional reactions leak power. When you respond immediately, you reveal where you are vulnerable. Silence conceals intention. It creates space. It unsettles those who rely on reaction. In modern life, silence functions the same way. When you do not rush to respond, you reclaim authority over your internal state. You are no longer controlled by provocation. You choose your moment. This is not passivity. It is timing. Chapter 5. The Inner Struggle. Kenji's greatest challenge was not other people. It was his own mind. In silence, his thoughts grew louder at first. Doubt whispered that silence made him invisible. Ego insisted that if he did not speak, he would lose relevance. This is the test Zen masters warned about. The warrior's path always begins with discomfort. Gamen, the ability to endure without complaint, applies not only to physical hardship, but to psychological restraint. To stay silent while the ego demands expression is an act of discipline few practice consistently. Chapter 6. Small, non-negotiable actions. Kenji began with one rule: do not speak unless it adds clarity or resolves necessity. This was not a vow of muteness, but of precision. He spoke less, but each word carried more weight. People noticed, not because he demanded attention, but because silence created presence. The samurai refined their speech the same way they refined their sword strikes: few, intentional, irreversible. Zen teaches that unnecessary movement clouds awareness. The same is true of unnecessary words. Chapter 7. The Shift in Identity. Over time, Kenji stopped needing to be understood by everyone. This was not detachment from people, but detachment from approval. Musashi warned against attachment to reputation. Silence weakens the grip of external validation. When you no longer chase response, you move freely. The warrior does not explain his path, he walks it. Silence becomes a boundary, protecting focus, conserving energy, and sharpening perception. This is why presence grows stronger when speech decreases. Chapter 8. Silence and Conflict. In Bushido, conflict was inevitable, but emotional chaos was optional. Silence and confrontation forces the other to reveal themselves. The one who speaks less listens more, and the one who listens more understands the terrain. Kenji noticed that disagreements resolved faster when he spoke last. He no longer fought to control the narrative. He allowed events to unfold. Zen calls this non-resistance, not because one yields, but because one sees clearly enough to act only when action is required. Chapter 9. The Hidden Discipline. Silence is not an absence, it is a system. A system that filters impulse, exposes motive, and refines identity. The samurai trained in silence long before battle because the fight is decided before swords cross. In modern life, the battle is internal, but the principle remains unchanged. Every unnecessary word weakens resolve. Every moment of restraint strengthens it. This is why silence feels heavy. It carries responsibility. Conclusion. The quiet path. The discipline of silence is not about withdrawing from the world. It is about meeting it without noise clouding judgment. When the mind is quiet, action becomes precise. When speech is restrained, presence deepens. This is the calm strength the samurai embodied. In a world that rewards constant expression, silence becomes rebellion. Not loud rebellion, but quiet mastery. Walk this path patiently. Speak when necessary, act when ready. And let silence do the work that words never could.